Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell. I'm from filmmakeru.com. And at Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work. And this week, I'm joined by Stunt Coordinator Lee Morrison, whose work includes Dune Part 2, No Time to Die, and Masters of Air, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I guess my first question is, how did you get into this business of stunt coordinating?
So to progress to stunt coordinator, I came to the film industry over 25 years ago now. I was brought in by a stunt coordinator, second year director called Simon Crane, who's undoubtedly one of the best second unit directors, stunt coordinators in the world, in history, basically in film. Fantastic English stuntman director. He brought me in. So I had a great opportunity. I came in at the very highest level and then progressed working for Simon, then working with Gary Powell, Vic Armstrong, and coming through as a stunt performer, learning my trade, working under those guys, progressing to assistant coordinator, second year, overall stunt coordinator. So it's this whole journey over the course of 25, most iconic directors of my time. I mean, so lucky. But you kind of get this amazing education. What's making a living? So it's the ideal scenario really for a stunt performer to come through and learn the skill of filmmaking, I'd imagine.
I've been a camera person for 30 years and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
Now, I also heard that you grew up racing motorcycles,
I
and
did,
have a love
yeah.
of motorcycles.
I do, yes, I do, along with horses. I lots of different hobbies for me and sports and passions. I did. I grew up riding from a very young age. I was lucky that my parents, my father, sat me on a motorcycle when I was very young, just at 5 years of age. And then I grew up racing from the age of 9, turning professional very young, 15, 16. Unfortunately, I got injured my first year pro. I say unfortunately, I had an amazing time riding and racing throughout the world. And then it sent me on a different direction. Ended up in California for a little while, sort of learning, becoming a semi-pro snowboarder, and then a rock climber and mountain biker, and then, boxing a little, and all these skills transferred really well to the film industry. So it was like another fork in the road that saw me go from being a professional athlete or a professional motorcyclist to end up in the film industry with all these, like a toolkit of how to be a stuntman, really, and had this amazing entry of having a skill set that was most people spend 10, 15 years whilst they're an adult achieving. I had them quite young, so it was a bit of luck, really, very much so.
What goes into the process of designing a stunt to make sure that you've achieved all the right math and science and
Yeah.
making it safe? What goes into this?
Oh, it can be a process. It starts as a conversation. Mainly, for instance, I'm working with Denis, or I'm working with Steve Spielberg, or I'm working, with Sam Mendes. Most of the time, it starts with a conversation. It's, I would love to see this, or this is what the character is going through at this point in time. I'm not sure 100% what I'd like to see, but this is a city, and can you go and have a look and design something? And that's where it starts. And then when for instance, we get a brief from our director, we'd go to a city or a location, and we'd scout it. We'd walk around and dream up what we could and couldn't do, or what's the possibilities. We'd then try and put that down into some form of storyboard or some kind of beat sheet. We'd then pitch the idea to the director and producers, and see where we end up. Hopefully, you've got enough understanding and direction from our director and or our lead artist and it gives you the at least the direction you need to come up with a sequence or an action beat that then you can start breaking down how to achieve it and how to execute it. And then that's what you do. You go to rehearse it. You may build a set, a proxy set, to basically make sure you can prove it, and then that would be taken to a location. There's many ways to prove a stunt and design a stunt, and it depends if you're working with a very VFX heavy sequence or it's all in camera. So it's just how we apply and tailor it to each script individually and each director's taste.
So it's so interesting to me because I think about, you know, sort of what you said, like, are you working with VFX or is it all in camera? Like, how does that shift? Like, if you're going more like with lots of VFX, but they need the shot in a particular way or something like that, how does that work with VFX?
I mean, it's something that we came, you know, we try to achieve everything in camera. You know, you come from working with war movies or war films, you know, for instance, like Masters of the Air, we have a practical stunt, or we may paint out safety lines purely because we have to have them because the city is requiring them. And actually just to protect the performer and actor and actress at that time. You know, if you're using a very VFX heavy sequence, i.e., you know, we're up at, should be at 36,000 feet, and, you know, we can achieve something with a fuselage with Masters of the Air, for instance. We would shoot that in a volume, but you put everything in camera as much as you can control, and then you have a digital intermediate to you know, increase the background behind that. So it's using the latest technologies, but still to have the essence of filmmaking and do everything you can in camera. That's the movies I love. Every piece of action should really be story driven. Otherwise, it just becomes action for the sake of action, and then you lose interest. So it's really important to make sure that everything happening on camera is there for a reason. And what is the reason? And can you tell that story?
Now, is there a particular stunt from Masters of Air that you just loved executing or loved coming up with?
To be honest, it's so technically challenging for all of the directors, and I directed second unit for all of the directors through, you know, all the way from 1 through 9, and everybody had their own distinct style. For me, just every time we got it right with executing the sheer terror inside the fuselage, that was what I was rewarding. I had to make sure that the audience felt like they were inside that B-17. They were in that dogfight. They were in that up at 36,000 feet. They were cold, they were scared, and then into that open air of the, you know, panorama of hell, you know, that moment we go slow-mo and you see all the aircraft, they're all real accounts. That's really what was happening. So for me, I think just doing them justice and making sure there was no hits in the aircraft that were, you know, weren't realistic. They were hard hitting and real.
So working with actors, I'd love to know, you know, how do you determine, because some actors are like, yeah, I do my own stunts, but like you have to sort of figure out, can they do it and what's the safety level in that? So like, how do you like to work with actors and when they're doing their own stunts versus when they're not?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I've seen a huge increase in the amount of actors that want to perform their own action, and it's great for us, you know. First and foremost, is it safe? You know, stunt performers, inherently, it's quite a dangerous job. We try to mitigate those risks as best we can, but it is still, you know, you're working with explosives, you're working with, you know, things that are moving very quickly, whether it be a 360 gimbal or a moving car or a moving motorcycle or a plane or a boat. So these things, you know, have weight and they can hurt. So we deem it to be safe, or as safe as we can. We start slowly and we work through the actors and actresses to make sure they can achieve the action required from the directors. And then we talk about it. It's a conversation. How much do we really need them to do it? How much do they really want to do it? And that's how I build my relationships with the actors and through whoever I work with. And it is becoming, you know, extremely popular for them to achieve as much as they can. Especially we have clever ways now of layering our action around them or protecting them with soft sets, which, you know, we did years ago as well. But soft sets with the production designers have just become incredible. You know, we have, you know, with digital photography, we can print backgrounds onto soft neoprene sets that look in camera as if they're completely hard marble, but they're actually, you know, 10, 15 mil neoprene, which gives you a little bit of cushioning so the actors can maintain their physical performance without getting hurt.
You talked about, or you talk about getting hurt, and I know that in one of the interviews I saw with you, you had talked about you had hurt your back at one point.
Sure.
And I'm wondering because you worked your way up as a stunt person into
Hmm.
stunt coordinating. So like, how do you, how, like, is there techniques or something? Like, how do you take the hits, or how do you take, like just jumping a bike or something, landing can be
Yeah.
really hard. How do you do
Yeah.
that for your back?
I mean, that's something you learn, so unfortunately, the hard way sometimes. Racing motorcycles and performing motorcycles outside the film street is quite different from being on a film set. You've
Hmm.
got a very limited time to achieve the energy in a shot, which I picked up very quickly. We're learning from Simon Crane, or even got Dan Bradley and Gary Powell, Vic Armstrong. Racers have 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get up to speed and win their moto. We're performing in front of a camera for a motorcycle, for instance. You have 5 seconds
Hmm.
and it's got to be full speed. So you learned how to protect yourself by building certain things into the set that then you can take up some of the landings. But again, unfortunately, it's just tricks of the trade that you learn with experience as you come through, and then you pass that on to the younger performers and the actors and actresses. You make sure that you're giving all of that experience over to make everything in front of camera as dynamic and visceral as possible, but safe as possible
Hmm.
also for longevity of those guys, because things have changed. We've moved on in our industry. It's great. Health and safety is now, a big part of what we do. We have to be smart, we have to be clever, and we really want to look out for everybody on a film set, including stunt performers. But inherently, it's quite tough on the body. Same as being a professional athlete. You are
Yeah.
unfortunately going to get sprains, you are going to get bad backs, and you are going to get those things. But that I don't think most. I wouldn't have it any other way in my career. Yes, I'm slightly a little slower in the mornings moving, but it's I've had some
Yeah.
amazing opportunity to jump off bridges and out of buildings and across rivers and things like that.
No, there's this constant discussion about stunt performers should be included in the Academy Awards, and I'm wondering
Yeah.
that because there was, they've added a few new categories this year, but they didn't do the stunts, and I'm wondering when the stunts get added, how
Mm.
how do you guys judge which one would be the stunt
Um,
to get it?
yeah,
Because I think about all the back end stuff that we don't see.
I'm. It's a contentious point at the moment. I think the stunt award for in the academies. I'm a little on the fence with this one right now, because I'm a great believer, just with my peers and mentors that I've come through working with and for. I love the fact of being an unknown stuntman, and yes, I do. It's great to meet you and have and do these interviews, because it's very nice to talk, and it's a very interesting subject. But
Mhm.
for me, I always, grew up with Lee Majors and the unknown stuntman, and for me, it was always the art of storytelling. And I love the fact I love storytelling, and that's my
Mhm.
favorite thing about movies. So working with great English directors as well. I'm just about to work with Joe Wright, and I think his storytelling is incredible. Denis Villeneuve, I've just worked with Dune Part 2. He's a genius. Steven Spielberg. That whole moment of storytelling, I think the art of being a stunt performer and helping us believe an actor and actress has performed that piece of action in that movie. It should be
Mhm.
seamless. You shouldn't even think about, oh, that's a stunt double. That's how I see it. So
Mhm.
I think it's just a contentious point. I think it's lovely for performers to be recognised. We have a thing called the World Tour Stunt Awards, which is amazing honour to be nominated or win one of those awards. They're coming up pretty soon in May. And that's voted upon by our peers. You're invited to be a member of the Taurus Awards, and then you get sent through the nominations, and your peers vote on what they think is the best stunts for the certain categories, and that's an amazing award to win. So we'll see. It'll be fantastic for people to be recognised. I just think that for me, I still believe that stunts is stunts and acting's acting. Yes, there's a crossover for sure, and there's amazing stunt performers that are really great actors as well that make that transition over.
Mhm.
I just think that I come from maybe a little more old school, where the art of storytelling was to have a stunt double perform seamlessly, so you wouldn't actually know it was a stunt performer. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that eventually there'll be an Academy Award, and it'll be great to be recognised for key people.
Now, I have two more questions for you. One is, like I said, I saw a bunch of interviews with you, and one of them, you were traveling the world riding your motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what was your favorite place to have ridden your motorcycle?
Oh, I've been so God, Jesus. I've ridden in India, I've ridden in Cambodia, Vietnam, the mountains, Austria, all over the world, really. I would say probably Cape Tribulation, Australia, is one of my favourites. That's just an incredibly special place. I would say the mountains, anywhere mountains for me are just, I think they're majestic, and also love the desert. I spent a lot of time on Dune Part 2 out in the desert. And found myself getting up 2 hours earlier than I really needed to just go up and see the light come up in the desert.
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. I think the desert is one of the most magical, majestic places I think I've ever worked. It's just incredible. And I think it's the light there. I think, and also the feel you have just feels that, I don't know, maybe the same as the mountains, very similar, where it feels majestic and yeah, quite spiritual, I think.
My last question for you is, what would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Oh God! You know what? That's a really great question. What's my favourite movies? I love action, but I really love storytelling. So, and then action or guilty pleasure. I may put on something. I quite like the Armageddon kind of
Oh
end of
yeah.
the world kind of movies. You know those ones where or what was the old movie? Oh God, it was Volcano or something, Dante's Peak, or
Yeah.
those kind of old sort of disaster movies, very early ones, and then going back to the Blues Brothers, old, and then also the amazing New York crime stories. I love Michael Mann as well. I think he's an amazing director, and some of his work like Heat,
Yeah.
and oh God, Collateral and things like that. And then yeah, lots. Depends if I'm on a flight. Sometimes depends what mood I'm in. But guilty pleasure for sure. It's always a disaster movie, like 2012, or
Yeah.
it's there. I do love a good, really well done old school disaster movie.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Oh, my pleasure.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.